Presentation, we have two folks that are going to present about municipal facility good housekeeping and pollution prevention. That's one of the program requirements in these municipal stormwater permits that Jonathan and Rusty talked about. So first up is Danon Lawson. He's the stormwater utility administrator for the city of Gastonia. He has held this position since 2019 and is grateful to be back in the region. Prior to this, he was the district conservationist in Jacksonville, North Carolina with the USDA, Natural Resources Conservation, NRCS, and previously had worked for 15 years with Gaston County's Natural Resources Department. He's currently an appointed member of the Gaston Soil and Water Conservation District Board, where he holds the position of vice chair. His academic achievements includes a bachelor's degree from Western Carolina in Natural Resources Management and a master's in Environmental Assessment from NC State. Despite his career and academic accolades, his greatest achievement is being a father to 6-year-old twin boys, 1.5-year-old daughter, and a husband to his wife of 17 years. I'm going to go ahead and read the bio for our other presenter, who is Mallory Hodgson. As a professional engineer, Mallory Hodgson has worn many leadership hats since graduating from Clemson University in 2014. She worked for 5 years in the private sector prior to joining the town of Harrisburg, North Carolina, where she is the current public works director and town engineer. Mallory's peers would describe her as an action-oriented leader. She has a wide range of experience in the civil engineering field, from water and sewer, stormwater, land development, emergency management, and transportation. She is a proud North Carolinian and takes advantage of the endless opportunities this state has to provide. So first, from Dana.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you all for attending, whether online or in person. It's good to see everybody here. I will make this as hopefully informative and interesting and quick as possible, because I know that there's a lot of questions. We'll leave time for questions and stuff. But you'll see that my name and Mallory we're both doing this presentation. I just want to do a quick plug for our regional stormwater partnership and say that this is the benefit of participating with a regional stormwater partnership, is that not only do we get to share perspectives, there's idea sharing, and at the end of the day, each watershed is a little bit different, but we're all trying to resolve similar issues. And having this type of idea sharing and this ability to work together, it really is, there's a lot of value in it. So in my bio, which probably took up more time than I needed, I probably should have shortened that a little bit, but you see that I am the city of Gastonia stormwater administrator. But I'm also the vice chair of Gaston County Soil Conservation District Board. And so I am part of this elected officials community. And today I want to take just a few moments, and Jonathan did a great job. There's probably gonna be some overlap here, so we'll expedite it, but I don't think some of these things can be said too much, maybe just in a different way. So the very first question is, who are you as an elected official? This may be almost so rudimentary that it doesn't even bear commenting on, but just, entertain me here. The term elected official means the mayor, council member, commission member, board member, alderman, or other public position as part of a dedicated body, a governmental body representing public interests, whether elected or appointed to fill a vacancy. The unofficial definition is simply a human being. And so a lot of times people will come to you as an elected official and say, well, you're, don't you know this or don't you know that? And no, you don't. But the important thing is to know who to go to. And in something as complex as stormwater, if you have a good, solid staff that you can rely on, know who those staff members are, because they'll have answers to give you support. I think this is interesting. The overreaching goal is to ensure that our current and future clean surface water is clean, as it impacts the current and future citizens and neighbors downstream. This is a photo of me and my son who went to, at his school, he went to a career day and he decided that he wanted to be a stormwater administrator. So it doesn't take you too much to figure out who is now in my will and the executor of that will. I couldn't be prouder. I thought that was, and honestly, this is an education opportunity, as teachers were saying, what the heck is a stormwater administrator? And he actually had a chance to correctly tell them. So what we do does make an impact. And education is pivotal. In other words, communication is important. And anybody who's ever heard me speak knows that at some point I'm going to interject some type of humor into this. So I want to say, if you've heard this story before, again, bear with me. But it's sort of like the child who went to Sunday service on Memorial Day. And at the end of the service, everyone was leaving, and there's a wall at the back of the church that had all the branches of the military: Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard, and names and dates under that. He's standing there staring at it. The pastor comes up to him and he says, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, Pastor, what are all these names here?" And he said, "Well, son, those are the people that died in the service." He says, "Was that the 9:30 or the 11?" So we'll make sure that our communication is correct with regardless of who we're talking to. By the way, it's good doing this on Zoom, because if I tell a joke, I can't hear if anybody's even laughing. So thank you for that. To better understand terminology, let's review what your permit means. Now, if anybody that's ever dealt with state, federal government, it's alphabet soup. We're talking right now about the NPDES MS4 permit. Okay, so, and Jonathan did a good job of explaining this. So again, this may be restated, but NPDES is the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. Your MS4 is your Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And then per Webster, a permit is to authorize or make possible. So when we put all this together, what we're really saying is this is an authorization from a governing body, which allows for a municipality the ability to discharge water that falls on the surface of the ground within your city limits into the waters of the U.S. in a manner that it eliminates harmful components. So that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about a permit or your permit. This is what you as elected officials are ultimately responsible for, and we in the stormwater department are also responsible for. There are 6 minimum measures that are required to this, as this is an unfunded federal mandate. So you're required to do this, but there are 6 minimum measures that we have to comply with. And number 6 on this is good housekeeping and pollution prevention. Now, here's the question: why do we care about stormwater? As an elected official, you may have heard this or even used this term, rain tax. If you want to get my skin crawling, don't call it a rain tax. This is a stormwater utility fee. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about terminology and the difference between the two. Now, a tax is a mandatory payment or charge collected by a local, state, national government for individuals or businesses to cover the costs of general government goods, services, or activities. And that's not my definition. That one comes from Webster's as well. Whereas the utility fee, a fee is simply a payment or charge collected by the government from individuals or businesses that is levied and based on the individual or business that uses the utility. In our case, stormwater is the contribution to our stormwater discharge, or our infrastructure. It is the utility that needs to be maintained, and the fee that is levied is based on the contributions and pressures put on those systems. To give you an example of this, go back to Rusty's presentation. There was a 1 acre parcel of land that was trees. You're in the city of Gastonia, for instance, you're not going to receive a utility fee on something that has no impervious surface on it. If you have a 1/4 acre and the entire thing is impervious concrete, you're going to get a fee for that. So we're charging based on your contribution to that runoff. So to better understand this, we are, I can't say this enough. I like to consider us the platypus of utilities. It is very difficult for a lot of people to understand. Stormwater utility is in fact a utility. You have active metered utilities versus a passive utility. We are a passive utility. We're only important when it rains. But man, when it rains, are we ever important? Because we are what allows the water to leave those impervious surfaces. So from an active metered utility, we'll paint this in another picture here. You've got lights and water and sewer. Those are active meter. You turn your water on, turn your lights on. As a kid, I recall my father saying, turn the lights off, cut the water off, because that's costing us money, right? Your passive utilities are paid based on how much land is contributing to your runoff. Now, here's the weird part about this is where we get into the platypus portion of this. You can always cut those utilities off, the active metered utilities. You can go to Duke or to your municipality and say, please turn these off. Two Rivers is our water sewer. You can go and say, please turn my utilities off. You can never turn off your passive utility unless you get in there and rip all of the concrete up and replant it in grass or have it back to a pervious surface. So what is good housekeeping? No, this isn't really good housekeeping. All right, this is good housekeeping. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about municipal good housekeeping. Okay, in a nutshell, good housekeeping is a minimum measure, number 6, that we as a municipality are required to do. And this is to how do we manage our facilities and staff to ensure that stormwater pollution is prevented from leaving our sites. We require private sites to make sure that their standards, their stormwater control measures are up to standard, that things that are leaving are not providing any deleterious impacts to our water quality. But how do it should start at home. We should really look at what we're doing. And what does that involve? Is it really that complex? Well, each municipality is a little bit different. There are facilities and entities that contribute to the permit, and you got to know who your staff, whose staff is responsible, what standard operating procedures look like to make sure that we are remaining in compliance with making sure that our facilities are good, and really education is ultimately pivotal on this, education and also facilitation, make sure things are done. This is but this is where I'm going to stop and bring in Mallory. I was informed by other people that I am, of this duo, definitely the uglier of the pair. So please don't take any more time.
Thank you. I think where he leaves off is a great spot for me to start. And I'm going to echo a lot of things that Mayor Williams said. I was listening to your presentation and had a lot of similar things going on. But thank you for having me here today. My name is Mallory Hodgson. I'm the Public Works Director for the town of Harrisburg. So Danon's already taken us through kind of what the requirements are of good housekeeping, and the intent behind my presentation is to gain elected official support of good housekeeping. So I know we've had a lot of PowerPoints, so we're kind of at a death by PowerPoint moment. So I'm going to share a video. It's about 40 seconds long. So this is going to take us through the stormwater pollution prevention operations at our facility. So those are some of the basics. And if you couldn't read it, I'm going to talk about a few of them in a little bit more detail. But basically I've showed you a few items of good housekeeping at municipal facilities. So having secondary spill containment, emergency procedures at gas pumps, covered storage, tracking mats for vehicles exiting and entering construction site. But what does it take to get to that video? So first you need to get your SWIP together. You have to have a plan. So a SWIP is a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and it lists the potential sources of pollution of stormwater, and it describes practices to reduce pollutants and helps ensure compliance. There are a few different components that go into the SWIP. Obviously, the SWIP should identify the person responsible for good housekeeping, where should identify any facilities there that you have pollutants that could go to the stormwater system. So you should have one for each site. What you will do to reduce pollutants and what practices you'll enact, and then when. So timing, how you'll document, report, all those things within the MS4 for your stormwater pollution prevention plan. So you have to have staff. You need adequate staff. So you really need staff to cover the services that you want to provide. In my opinion, good housekeeping is the first thing that slips without adequate staff. You're not getting checked behind. This might be a public works facility or a fire station. No one's coming around and doing an inspection regularly. You might get an inspection every 4 years on your audit. So it's really up to the municipalities to do this. And one thing about good housekeeping that I don't think has been mentioned is this is setting the tone for your entire community. It starts with the municipality. So if you're expecting a development site to have good post-construction stormwater control, you need to have good stormwater control in your own facilities. I'll say put a little asterisk on staff, because staff needs to be trained. So they need to be able to notice the deficiencies in good housekeeping and feel empowered to correct the issues. So you've got people, you're fully staffed. What do? You want to train and empower the team. So one thing I like to do is create ownership and pride. These are some of my public works staff after a training event that we had on the bucket truck. What I try to do is make them proud of their facility. It's where we come to work every day, and I want it to look great. I want them to be proud that they work there. It's our facility, so why would they not be proud of it? I want to set an example. So we are enforcing these things on construction sites. We're going to enforce it in our own facility, and always say thank you. That's just easy. Like if they're doing a great job, I want to try to show ways to be thankful. And one thing I do on that is when we're doing a training event, maybe for illicit discharge or even for good housekeeping, I will use an example that someone brought to me. So if they found an illicit discharge in the field, took a picture of it and reported it, I'll try to work that into the training session somehow and say, okay, John found this great example of illicit discharge. He recognized this from our last training event. Like, great job, John. And just give them pride for how they're showing up in the field, identifying these issues. And then another thing about setting the example, and Mayor Williams talked about this too. You, as an elected official, and this is a little bit more toward a manager, I suppose, but as an elected official, making sure that you're not cutting corners. Yeah, I heard you say that, and I thought that was really powerful, because if we're cutting corners to get economic development into the city, and we're saying, okay, you don't have to put in a stormwater pond, well, what does that show about our municipality? We're okay with, maybe not upholding the rules, but we want to do that on our facilities. So set that example on our own facilities. So where do you need a stormwater pollution prevention plan? And I've got a lot of acronyms, so the SWIP and the good housekeeping. So where do you need a stormwater pollution plan? I don't think I'm in front of the camera. I'm sorry. So you need them anywhere that your municipality conducts municipal operations. So it could be your public works facility, fleet services, your city hall, town hall, fire stations, parks, airports, police stations, and your stormwater pollution plan needs to be site specific. So for an example, if you have at our public works facility, I showed a picture of our gas pumps. That is a known contaminant that if we had a gas spill could get into the stormwater system. So we want to be specific that that site has a gas pump, what we do at that site. Our fire station, our town hall doesn't have gas pumps, so we don't need to have that included in that SWIP there. So that's what I mean when I say site specific. So how can elected officials help? And I'm going to wrap it up here. I did try to be a little bit quick. I know we're crunched on time. But the first one is just understanding the basic of permit compliance. Attend these workshops that are hosted by the regional partnership. Support staff with funding for staff, equipment, compliance services, and involvement in the regional partnership. It does cost us to be involved in the regional partnership, but the value that we get out of it is much higher than the cost to the town. Compliance services could look like hiring a consulting firm to help you draft your SWIP if you don't have engineering staff that can do that. And then funding for staff and equipment, sometimes putting that money in upfront pays off a lot better later. Good example is just with our facility, the secondary containment of our oils. If we were to have a spill, we don't have to pay to clean that up, so we've got it contained. Costs a little bit more to build up front, but will save us a lot of money down the line if we did have a spill. And then aid in development of revenue streams to support funding. So to me, this looks like tiered rate studies for your stormwater, for a stormwater fee. Let's see. Supporting staff in chasing down grants, other things. And one thing I want to mention is that notices of violation can drastically impact a community's ability to get grants and finance your projects. So some funding sources don't want to finance a project for a municipality that's not in good standing with their permits. And lastly, supporting, encouraging stormwater friendly development. And again, Mayor Williams touched on this as well, but low density development ordinances, green space, maximum impervious areas, these are all great ways that to have stormwater friendly development. So in conclusion, you need a SWIP to have good housekeeping. Elected official support is critical, and elected officials can lean on staff expertise to develop the strategies to initiate good housekeeping. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again, Danon and Mallory. So we're gonna have a slight